thing.
Let's hit it.
All right, welcome to the Details podcast. Only took us 15 minutes, but it's Tuesday. It is 3 p.m. We've already got 2 basketball games rolling. I know collectively we probably want to wrap this up within the next hour because we got a hockey game that I'm sure that we both like to watch eventually. But to the 3 or 4 people that are in America that apparently listen to this podcast, it was our long weekend, and James and I really didn't find out till the end of last week.
And I just found out that it's not an American one right now.
It's none of
nice.
Thanks, man. This podcast is all about education, man.
Such an informative guy you
are. So how was your long weekend?
It was meh.
It was meh.
It was raining and shit. I went to the beach one day.
Yeah.
Saturday, I guess, but then it started raining, so I left.
And so what was the crowd like there?
Yeah, like a lot. I don't know, man.
You're not proud of yourself.
I'm only set up for trouble in this question, so I don't want to answer anymore.
Well, we found out last week you like to bike in groups of 20 or 30, I think you suggested,
the
right?
more the merrier, honestly. This is what I've been saying in the past couple months.
You're running a fundraising charity.
I honestly just meet people on the street now and just tell them to come along with me. Yeah, it's just kind of what I do.
That is your hippie persona now. Guy's like open shirted with a plaid shirt right now.
I hope that I guess no one knows me well enough to know if I'm kidding or not, but that's whatever. How was your weekend?
I feel like there's a tent in here somewhere.
There definitely is. Actually is in the other room.
So my weekend, like you, I didn't realize it was a long weekend.
Right.
And so kind of buckled in on the idea of turning my weekend into March Madness, right?
I'm going to stop you. So I'm going to try, let's CD try and tell us how he didn't move his own body for 5 days, but yet somehow that's still a good thing. Okay, go.
So I got up to go to Firehouse Subs. I got up to go to, no kidding. Anytime I did get up, I did go. You know what?
He's kidding. Amazon brought that to him.
I was kind of active at the beginning of the weekend. So
right.
Friday, I went mini putting.
Okay.
And I haven't done that since high school. That was an
interesting
interesting experiment.
Actually. Yeah,
it was really good. But I quickly learned
that you're awful at putting.
No, my short game is on par, on point, whatever you want to call it. I'm really good at the putt game. But I realized that when it comes to, it was a date. Right?
Oh.
And I quickly realized I should not be put in a competitive situation when it's within the first couple of dates because the ugly side of me comes. Now credit to her, and I know she's gonna probably listen because she's become a fan of the podcast already.
Okay.
But credit to her, she was a great sport and she just kind of let me be.
Let you be.
Yeah. I'm not gonna. I don't want to tell her that she let me win because right. I definitely don't want that on air.
And I already feel like she probably, if anything, she may have let you win. I don't think you're very good at golf. I can already tell you that.
Is that a challenge? Are we gonna have?
I would easily beat. I would handle you in mini putt.
No, say no more. We're going mini golf.
This is an interesting move by you mentioning the dating scene on the pod. Okay.
I'm not sure. This might not make the cut.
Is this a new episode? Hey, welcome to Dating Advice with James. I'm your host.
James got a couple candles in here, so we could fire it up if we really wanted to. But no, I went, and I haven't gone in such a long time, but I actually miss mini putting. Like it's
fun.
Yeah.
I'm never much of a golfer, and I mean, I know my parents. I thought you did golf. My family has.
Oh, okay.
It's in my family, and my mom is a very, very good golfer even to this day. But golfing's tough, man. Like it's an internal battle mentally.
I don't have the patience for it. I'm happy.
But when you go to mini putt, it's just the fun of it.
Oh yeah.
Like there is absolutely no word.
But if I was with you, Dave, and all these guys that are super high competitive on my sort of level, then it gets really ugly, right? Like we are the guys that you want to play in front of or behind for that matter because we're just holding everyone out.
I mean, you saw me in men's league basketball.
We
know how ugly it
we've
gets.
seen each other in men's league basketball. You know, it's funny because my favorite, not my favorite story, but the thing I like to tell a lot of people is like outside of those 4 lines, I'm a nice guy, like, you know, I'll get along with you. But as soon as the whistle blows and as soon as we start bouncing that basketball, I am a complete different monster. And you will almost 100%. Unrecognizable. I am very similar to like Chris Paul, right? You see him out in the community. He's head of the NBA PA. Like he's the guy, but he's just such an asshole on the court, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, that was my weekend. But then, like I said, fell into, March Madness mode and kind of glued myself to the most part. And shout out to Tyler, right? He kept me on my toes with the gambling. So we were always jumping on live bets, made a couple of parlays, quickly learned that Tyler is the curse and I'm not to get on the same bets with him. So I like to say I ended out even up to today, and I decided I'm not going in on any bets today.
Nice.
Knock on wood. I mean,
so yeah,
there's a Houston-Portland game tonight, so...
Right, so when do you message or shoot a tweet out that saying that you have a parlay?
Literally, right before we started, Tyler's like, just so you know, the Nets are up on the Bucks right now. And I'm like, no, I'm turning off my phone, so... We are in full throttle mode when it comes to sports, gambling, everything. I'm in my best life right now. I gotta say, at least.
So how many times did you order skip the dishes?
Listen, that was my only time to exercise. I actually physically got out of my house to get food. So, yeah, I know it's not that bad yet. Keyword yet. So obviously we're in full tilt right now. Basketball is back. Hockey is back. Hockey is kind of where I wanted to start this conversation.
Yeah, okay.
Got together with Dave. P.S. I have to say this. Dave and I made an observation.
Uh-oh.
You dropped Encarnacion and Donaldson. That experiment didn't work out so well for you.
I had to make ulterior moves after my trade with our boy Gabe.
Right.
Well,
you got to catch up to that. You got to catch up to that person that's in first place, right?
Oh, the owner of the league.
Oh, the owner of the league.
Who rigs the fucking standings and settings and...
Okay,
the first...
okay, I don't know, his name's Asuno or whatever. Usuna from my first overall pick has done jack shit for me. So there's literally no excuse for you.
I'm just so happy you couldn't pronounce it too. That made me feel a lot better. For anyone that goes into a fantasy league with D next time, please do not allow him to make the league and then somehow not admit to owning up the fact that he gets the first pick. Oh, well, look, I get the first pick.
What? Whatever helps you sleep at night. If you can't face the music of me being in first place, 9-1 right now, that's okay. That's all right. But I quickly made that observation. I'm like, hey, Dave, I know you don't listen to podcasts.
I know you don't.
But Dave called you out for taking all these XJs, and he decided to drop those XJs. Not even 7 games into the season.
I hope this comes full circle and Dave picks him up down the road.
And you're already on the waiver wire. Shout out to you and Gabe for making transactions in the league.
Hey man, I'm moving. I'm making my moves.
So Leafs get together with Dave, decide to watch some playoff hockey. I obviously nothing about hockey because I didn't realize we're jumping into a best of 5 right away. They played the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, that's funny that not a lot of people knew that, right?
I had no idea.
Okay, yeah. Fair.
I'm midway game. I'm like, right, it's going back and forth. I'm like, when's the next Leafs game? I'll put in my calendar. I'm like, it's against the Blue Jackets again, and then their next game's the Blue Jackets, and then possibly 2 more. And I was like, oh, we're jumping into this thing right away. And then that's where Dave had explained to me the top seeds are playing with each other to organize the top of that tier. But then the rest of the games, you could have been in the playoffs, but then a team like the Blue Jackets come in and could possibly knock you out. So Blue Jackets,
which is interesting, I think, and I kind of like how it's different.
Right. Well, I mean, again, I'm not in tune with news and the buzz and whatever the word is in hockey, but I haven't seen a lot of complaints about this format.
Yeah, no, I haven't either. I have to say though, I don't know about you, but I think watching the game was kind of weird.
Yes. So I had a huge conversation with Dave about this. It's weird because when those blueprints came out, I think we talked about this podcast. I was like, oh, the NHL kind of got this right. It looks really sick. But then similar to baseball, once you kind of get wider and those, the rafters kind of see that blue tarp like you had suggested, I didn't really notice. It really does feel empty. And I think you miss the banging on the glass. You miss all those really loud moments. And I didn't realize how integral
it's something that I wasn't going to guess that I would notice in hockey more than every other sport. But really though, I would even say that this is the one sport where home ice or even a loud crowd at a loud stadium isn't actually that effective to the game. But it's so noticeably not there.
Mm-hmm. It is really, really.
It actually, honest to God, I haven't enjoyed that. It's hurt me a bit.
Pumping in the crowd noise, and I'm kind of getting irritated with it in basketball as well. I'm slowly noticing that too. But it's just I don't know. It just seems really, really obvious and weird.
Yeah.
I will say the hockey commentators are doing a great job with it, right? And I think that's because everything is moving all the time. So there's always something to talk about, whether it's movement on the bench, something on the ice, whatever.
I did notice they were doing a great job, but I've also noticed that because the NBA is doing such a fucking awful job. I mean, other than Doris Burke and Jeff Van Gundy, I don't want to listen to anybody else. I don't care about anybody.
Right.
But no, man, I don't know.
Doris is the queen.
Doris
definitely.
Is awesome.
She's winning. She's definitely winning right now.
Jeff Van Gundy's fucking awesome too. Don't.
He's already got into old man cranky mode. He's like, this is my 4th day in a row.
That's one of my favorites out there, man. This guy's he honestly just sounds like he's pissed off they're paying him to be there.
He's just sometimes. So real and honest, and that's what we want, right? We want to know what the bubble life is like, especially for someone of that age who's not used to it, right? Because calling that many consecutive games I didn't realize that. It's got to be exhausting for him.
Right. So. And man, the hockey thing, it's tough. these guys, it seems like the level of play isn't to where it should be either.
Oh, okay, interesting.
In my opinion.
Okay.
And like, yeah, dude, like they're gonna be sloppy, you know, like there's gonna be the sloppiness, and I understand that. But hockey being such a chemistry-driven sport, this stoppage, I think, hits it the hardest. It really, really does. And I don't think the players either have that kind of same accountability across the board to keep themselves in shape at the same level that they were at.
I also think, I thought it would have been a longer scrimmage games. Like, I thought there would be more tune-up games.
And there wasn't enough.
I quickly realized they played like 3 games.
That's right.
And then it was like jump right into it.
Right.
And we've talked about in this podcast how hockey shape is a lot different from some of these other sports, right? So I think, you know, for the Leafs, for example, it's like now trying to like figure out their offense against this team that, you know, is obviously not going to be an easy out for them.
100%. Like, it's a different sport in that sense where there's that you're in the 20s of players and chemistry's divided by 3 guys, but then sometimes they mix and match lines. Like you need the 82 games to kind of know your identity going in. Mm-hmm. And I think this little hiccup in between not necessarily has like derailed teams, but it's made it very, very challenging to get back to where you were.
I also think there's a mentality for these lower seeded teams like the Blue Jackets where it's like, we have nothing to lose. We weren't supposed to be here anyways. So if we come out of this thing, we're the ones that shocked the world and swept the Tampa Bay Lightnings. Like we should be here. There's no reason to believe we can't beat this Leafs team that's been kind of, the team on the bubble, right? No pun intended, but they've been a team on the bubble. We don't know what to expect from them. They've not kind of lived up to their full potential. And now, so they have nothing to lose, where the Leafs have everything to lose because they have a top 5 scoring offense. They have all these weapons. They have all these young guys. And it's just like, I mean, we saw it, right? Like that one and only goal was kind of, I don't know if the word is fluky, but it was just, of all the shots that Anderson had let in, and like, it sucks that it was that one goal, because otherwise you would say Anderson had a great game.
But then also too, like, man, Anderson needs to see more pucks, dude. This guy, like, like, it's, you can't just huck him in here and be like, all right, man, shutout, let's go. Like, God, I don't know. 'Cause I'm assuming he didn't play every scrimmage game. I'm assuming Campbell got some reps as well. Mm-hmm. However you decipher that, however that happens, maybe he only faced 5 shots in a period. You know what I mean? Like, These guys just need more time. So
what I want to ask you, because I'm with my like very minimal knowledge of hockey, I couldn't help but be on Twitter and see Cody Ceci. So give me your 2 cents on Cody Ceci, and is he the reason that this Leaf team sucks?
See, this is the problem. So this is another point too with the Leafs, man.
I love the readjusting.
I just
you got antsy there.
This bugs me. So the Leafs, we love the Leafs, right? Everyone wants to love the Leafs. The Leafs are the best franchise in Toronto sports history. All this bullshit. You go to a Leaf game, it's fucking bananas. Everyone's freaking out, right? So this is very eye-opening, I think. Seeing these guys now play without the level of the fans and the Leafs, and how we always talk about it's tough to be a Leaf, man. I don't know if you want all that media or all that attention or all that and all this and that. Leafs are always on the radar, And now that there's no fans and no one's kind of pushing them, these guys came out deflated as hell. Like, what this tells me is, like, this kind of hockey culture. And
so you don't think they showed a level of desperation? Or,
I don't think a lot of guys around the league are going to get up for these games right now because they're used to a certain level of adrenaline provided, and that is now completely inadmissible. And basketball is different. So when we always want to compare the sports because it's so simple, right? You can just compare apples to apples. Well, man, like, it's just a completely different realm. And when it comes to hockey, it's a heavy, like, it's a snowball sport. You score 1 goal, you got some momentum, puck's moving around, a couple guys are feeling it. You might score another one. The other team knows that's happening. They know they're in trouble. They got to get out. It's momentum. It's about energy. It's very, very, very compounded on energy. And there's no energy in the building.
Right.
And these guys are not providing it for them. So now when you have these guys that roll up, and Cody Ceci, he's used to playing in front of fucking 20,000 fans and all this stuff, he comes out on defense and turns the puck over 5 times like he always does anyways. We jump on him and get pissed and all this, but I don't think these guys are up for these games, man. I don't think that this matters to them that much. And it looks like that for me. And hey, you're a body language doctor. You know what I mean? It appears to me that some of those guys don't give a fuck.
So it's interesting you say that because, again, like, I see whatever I see is what I see, and I kind of I base it based on my, like you said,
Yes.
body language thing. And I just kept saying to Dave, like, anytime they're racing for the puck, Columbus just seems like they want it more.
The team that is used to playing in front of fucking nobody, that doesn't want anything, they don't have any, they never get any praise. They're out here fucking, they're banging in the board, and and
They
I'm not
have more
saying
to play for.
Not every team is not going to show up, but these Leafs franchises, right? These guys that think they're hot shots, they don't like this. I bet they probably hate it.
Right.
Like, listen, I've played in front of 10,000 fans in front of homecoming, but I've also played in front of 6 guys at York. You know what I mean? I know the difference.
That is not an under or overstatement.
Yeah, and, there's not a whole ton of energy coming from the stands, and there's 6 dudes in there.
Right.
And it's you gotta find your own way. You gotta get in your own head. You gotta do your own thing. But I think at a certain point at this pro level, some of these guys forgot about that because it's always given, it's always provided.
Right.
And at a hockey level, when you only have 45-second shifts and you're only up there a certain amount of time, some of the lead and ice time guys on the Leafs, right, would be like Mo Riley, let's say, maybe 19 minutes. 19 minutes. That's it. 19. Man, like, when you have 19 minutes and there's 20,000 people screaming, you use that a lot for every second that you're out there.
Right.
But when you got a 45-second shift and you've been sitting on your ass for 5 months and your legs are feeling heavy and the puck goes in the corner, it's like, I don't know, man. I'm just saying some of these bigger echelon teams that are used to having such focal success and all this stuff with tons of energy around them, I don't think they're going to have a good time, and it doesn't look like they're having an easy time finding that level of adrenaline to play.
Right, because even the NBA players have talked about how beneficial those early games were, right? The scrimmage games, because you get used to the depth perception, as we had talked, right? We talked about Bill Simmons has been talking about this often, the fact that the photographers and that front row is all eliminated. Now these guys don't hesitate to go for that loose ball or, drive to the hole a bit harder, given, if you're going to go past the rim, you don't have to worry about dodging all these things. Like, you just get used to that for a couple games. But then in hockey, and they're in their restrictions regardless if there's fans or not, but it's just like, a lot of these guys maybe use that, atmosphere and the ambiance to kind of to play off that, right?
I would say the majority do. And I totally get that. That makes complete sense to me. That's how you have to play as like a gladiator on a stage in a sporting event like that. But with these different circumstances, man, a team like Columbus could be fucking dangerous.
Right. And that's where the top seeds kind of are benefiting from the fact that they're playing with teams on their level, their tier, right? And so when they enter in that first round, it'll be like, we just went through, bloodbath with this so-and-so team with the Tampa Bay Lightning. We're ready for whatever this bottom seed team is because they don't want it as much as us, or we've just been battle tested at this point, even though it's kind of a shortened season.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think to your exact question about Cody CC.
yeah, I guess we never got around to the answer of that. So what are your thoughts on Cody?
I think his performance was a huge reason for the loss for sure. But I think all of his success in Ottawa and whenever he is good, he's playing with a better partner.
Right.
And that's the key, I think.
Right. So yeah, Leafs down 0-1, and fun fact that teams that go up 2-0 in the best of 5 win 98% of the series. So it's pretty safe to say
with an
that
asterisk though, because every time beforehand, there's been a home ice advantage.
There has been a home ice advantage. That is a really, really
There's
good point.
not
So
one
So a lot of those best of 5 series that have gone, but 98% of the time, those teams are usually the home team. So hopefully the Leafs can turn things around tonight.
I'm not feeling hopeful. I mean, this is a super short sample for sure. But even if they get by Columbus, I'm not feeling hopeful, and the energy and everything seems awful right now.
Well, and what I've heard and I've read, and I mean, I saw this in the game, was Columbus is not a team that you want to play behind because their defense is so good, right? Yes. So I think the key to success, again, I'm not a hockey expert, so you can call me on my bullshit, but it appears that if the Leafs are going to win this series, they have to play from ahead and not behind.
Which they should be able to when you have $100 million wrapped up in 4 forwards.
Yes, exactly. So hopefully, top 5 offense, as I said, they up to that game, every team that had played had scored a goal. The Leafs were the only team that didn't put a point up.
Such a Leaf stat, dude.
Right? And then the Canucks played right after them. They got scoreless as well. But then every game yesterday, yesterday being Monday. So I guess, never mind. Not Monday. But even today, we had a couple games and both teams have scores. So, again, it is a very Leafsy stat,
Such
right?
A Leaf stat.
Leafs, Knicks, whoever you want it to be. Don't want to spend too much time on this one. Baseball, we've just get an update every week, and
we're just
obviously
I'm ignoring what you say on baseball because I'm just hoping it stays alive, and the league's going until
I'm just trying to beat it down, and you're just trying
opinion, it's staying up. We're good. Everything's
So,
great.
shortly after the Marlins go down, we find out one of the reasons they go down is because some of them went clubbing. All right. And then the Cardinals go down. We find out they're in the casino. Now, listen, I know where you think I'm taking this, but I actually wanted to tie this back to our NFL conversation because we said, if the NFL wants to be successful, the league can only do so much, but then the players have to be responsible and not go out as well, right? And they can't go in these mass settings. And I think this is a perfect example. And I hope that the NFL is looking at this and saying, guys, this is a perfect example of how we can only trust you so much. And you guys have to do your part and we'll do our part to make you feel safe when you enter our buildings.
Right. Well, see, and man, that's kind of where I kind of went off on that last week as well. And it's like, you can demand all these things as a player, and we want safety and all this stuff, but you have to understand that.
You gotta meet them halfway.
Yeah, because these guys in these big chairs, they don't think you're gonna meet them halfway. Mm-hmm. And honestly, they don't. I don't blame them.
Right.
Like out of the mass number of guys in the NFL, I would almost say it's safe to say 20% of each team is going to go against whatever rules are provided, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But now, so what now? Do you want to instill some sort of like, if you decide to not to completely open yourself out to that and go to a casino thing, go against the rules like that, what should the repercussion be, in your opinion? Is it a fine? Because again, we do this you know what I mean? Fine. Oh,
well,
great.
I mean, okay, so perfect example is Lou Williams, right? And you obviously had issue with that.
I have issue with it. I still do.
Right. And so he's now 10 days quarantine. He can finally play, right? Which is great.
Which makes no fucking sense. Thanks for clarifying that, NBA. Right? What's 10 days of quarantine? What is a 10-day quarantine?
I
still don't know. I don't know
what the number is. I don't know why 10 is the number.
But this is what the fuck?
Yeah, but then you have situations like the Cardinals and Marlins where there's this outbreak and all these teams get affected, right? And again, they could coaches are affected, older people are affected.
None of which should affect the science of the testing, is what I'm arguing.
Yeah.
There should be it should be a 48-hour period for a result, and then you should be either positive. That's what I understand. So with this 10-day quarantine thing and stuff, I don't get.
Right. Well, I think you're asking me what the answer is, and I hate to plug my team, but the Saints they're calling it a sequester. It's not going to be a bubble, but they're allocating this hotel, and they're kind of building like a bubble environment for their players. And I think that's something that the league should take note, and other teams should take note and do something very, very similar to that. Because I'm trying to remember his name, Kyle Brandt he works for the NFL Network, just got a podcast on The Ringer, but he's saying this is going to be so hard. Like, he's optimistic. He's the one that's been fending off for the NFL and saying we shouldn't bash the guys, like we should encourage them and be hopeful that this thing's going to go through. But they're saying, you're a 21-year-old player, right? God. And a girl slides in your DMs and says, like, let's go out tonight, right? If you're a young player, you're not going to be able to turn down a situation. You want to live like a 21-year-old. And I think that's where, your team, the head office, kind of has to come in and say, like, listen, like, I know you want to be young and you want to fulfill, all your inner ambitions or whatever it may be to like live this lifestyle that you should be living, but you are also a professional football player. You're getting paid, right? And you can't jeopardize the rest of our team.
I'm a bit old school on this one because I agree with you. I think that you should have a little bit of decent, like, that sucks, man. If you're 22, that sucks. Like, it does. But I've said this before, it's not it's not all sunshine and fucking daisies. If you want to play in the NFL and you want to be a pro athlete, that is a colossal thing for you specifically, personally. Now you have so many doors open for you to make money and income and all this stuff for the rest of your life that you've obtained a different level of profession
and lifestyle
than 99% of the planet. Now with that, if you got to miss a couple nights out, man, cry me a fucking river. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a lot of guys that would trade spots right now and not. I won't leave a hotel for 9 months. Sure. What do you mean?
Right.
Professional? NFL?
I mean,
if I'm a coach,
but listen, that's no different than how your career actually panned out. You became very antisocial once you got sort of indulgent to the university and football life.
If I'm a coach, man, and trust me, you're right. Even. You can take it back even further, man. If you wanted to go to 5 guys with a buddy you haven't seen in 2 years, right? Like, you just can't do that now. Like, the very simplest things you're not allowed to do. But at that same point where you're feeling sorry for yourself that you don't get to enjoy a 45-minute conversation, you have to understand that you're making a livelihood for the rest of your life that can also fucking feed your family. And like, there's, if you want to go enjoy yourself at 22 and not be in the NFL, then go do that. You can make that decision on your own. Be a big man, but don't complain about it.
Right. Yeah, no, it should, as things kind of progress here for the NFL, and obviously the growing number of people opting out. Now the NFL has extended it to Thursday, and obviously you got a huge blow with CJ Mosley now being out there as well. But we're starting to see some of these bigger names kind of fall.
That one hit.
Fall by the bedside.
That's one of the best tacklers in the NFL, bro.
Well, and I think for you, you got rid of Jamal Adams. You had that young Marcus Williams. I can't remember his name.
But CJ Mosley's like a pinnacle.
But you were feeling optimistic that we still got CJ Mosley, so we'd be okay. But it's interesting because I feel like that entire division is kind of falling, especially with the Patriots losing a lot of people on their defensive side. So I mean that division is kind of a toss up at this point.
How do you feel about these opting outs?
I'm okay with it. For a lot of them, it seems like they have a younger child in the mix, right? A 2-year-old, a new infant or whatever. So there's obviously a bigger just because they want to be opportunity cost for them, right?
Yeah, they want to see their kid grow up.
Right, exactly. So and like we talked about this, right? Like it's not like the NBA, it's not a bubble. Like at the end of these football games, you're traveling, you're hopping on a bus, whatever it may be, and you still have to go home to that family, and you don't want to jeopardize that.
100%.
Completely respected, and I guess next week I'm sure we'll be able to talk about more and maybe see more names fall on that list, or we'll see how.
I'd imagine you're going to see them kind of just trickle the whole year, right? Because even as an incident happens, you're going to have another couple guys like of that effect, right?
Absolutely. Okay, so this is I mean
can of worms.
No perfect segue, but the NBA is now back.
Yeah.
We are full swing. Kicked off on Thursday night with a great matchup between the Lakers and Clippers. We also had the Pelicans and Jazz? I believe it was Pelicans and Jazz, right?
Yeah, it was Jazz.
Pelicans and Jazz. Kind of before, I mean, I've got notes on all teams here, but kind of before we get into, how we're feeling about certain teams, what is kind of, we talked about our scrimmage takeaways. Now that we're kind of a couple of games in, what are some of the things that you've taken away? I know for me, it's just like, I'm kind of stealing from Bill Simmons here, but, the league has been phenomenal in hitting all the checkpoints that we needed for this to go well, right? Players are safe. There's been, 0 positive tests for coronavirus, COVID. Social justice, right? We were seeing all the messages. These guys are really taking advantage of the platform. Like Jaylen Brown is a great example. Like before he even gets a question, he's like, hey, did you know that a slave owner actually wrote the American anthem? Like he's just dropping knowledge on us, like little things like that.
I'm curious to know what his degree is in. I feel like that's a really intellectual guy.
Right. He's super smart.
Like low key though.
He's kind of a winner from this bubble right now because he's playing stellar as well, but he's also kind of been on the forefront of being ahead of this and reminding us that there's a bigger war on the outside of this bubble. The Raptors have done a great job of reminding Americans to vote. I mean, Nick Nurse is always wearing a vote sweater. As a Canadian a franchise, as a Canadian team, they're adamant that there are Americans living in Canada and it's important to vote.
And they've actually done I don't know what kind of fundraiser or foundation that they've created, but they've done something that would aid the people in Canada to go vote,
to have access to vote. Which
I love as well. That's awesome.
Absolutely. So recognizing all the social justice issues and putting that on the forefront, and then we're getting entertaining games, right? Yes. I think we are getting the product of, you have 24 teams in this bubble, the 24 best teams. I mean, you could take 4 of those teams out, right? The Wizards.
Who invited those guys?
They shouldn't be there. They definitely should be there. But, aside from like the 4 teams that are kind of clawing their way to trying to get in, we're just getting really good basketball. All these games are close. We've had a couple of overtime games. Like it really has like a March Madness vibe to it. And like, I'm not saying anything new here, but it also has that AAU vibe, right? I'm sure a lot of people that are watching these broadcasts, and if you're Canadian, you don't know what that means. Is like these kids kind of grow, like we have rep basketball here in Canada. They have the AAU stream and sort of the tree of players trying to come through, right? And I was really curious if they were going to have players come and watch their games. And, that first game, that Lakers and Clippers game, you see Dame there, CJ there, Melo's there, Kyle's there, DeRozan there, Rudy Gay. Like, I think it's just so cool that these guys get to play for their peers. And like, you've seen a couple of times LeBron, like looking over at like CP3, whoever it may be, nodding, smiling, whatever. Like, I just think that's so cool.
I love it too. I think you stole the words around my mouth. The social movement and everything, they have fucking nailed it. I think they've done an outstanding job, and it's doesn't seem to be slowing up and everything. Even the way they're protesting, like Miles Leonard, yeah. His family, I believe, I don't know too much of this, but his family going back in the days is like a very, very high military grade. Like they're very common. So he's like standing still.
And his brother's enlisted as well.
Right. He's standing for the anthem still, but he's still connecting to the guys. Like even the way that everyone is doing the exact thing that they should be. They're talking to their teammates. They're coming to an agreement. Everyone's coming to a consensus, and then they're performing it together as an act of strength. It's amazing, dude.
But I think if there was an issue internally, like if somebody was upset that he was standing, I think you would see, that would reflect on the court, right?
Yes,
but he's wearing the Black Lives Matter shirt. He has his hand on his teammate's shoulders. I think
they have their hands on him as well.
Right, exactly. They understand that the anthem means something different to him, and I think that's very important. Like Jonathan Isaac is another perfect example. Like, and fuck all those people that said, it was karma, like for him not kneeling that he tore his ACL. Like, you're stupid, right? Like, you don't wish that kind of karma on someone else, right? Like, especially when it comes to the health. But he had his feelings and resentments towards kneeling, but it didn't mean, as a black person, it didn't mean that he wasn't for the social justice and what it meant, right? So no, it's great that we're seeing that and guys are explaining themselves. I think like Pop didn't kneel and people are like, Pop's not gonna kneel. The guy's like 70. Like, what do you expect? The guy probably physically can't kneel.
That knee might not. Yeah.
Like,
I wouldn't even let Pop kneel beside me.
If you're gonna criticize anyone, Pop is not the guy to criticize. He literally had a podcast about all this stuff.
No, I ain't trusting Pop going down on the knee. He ain't coming back up.
No, exactly. So,
but no, the coolest takeaway so far from this that I've found, and we spoke a bit about how we talked about which player is gonna, like, are there gonna be guys that appreciate no fans? Of course, TJ Warren's our first example.
Yeah, he's the MVP bubble. MVP bubble right now.
But I want to say, like,
bubble MVP.
What I kind of thought about more and more, and as I watched more and more of these games, 1 through 5, right? You're going to be consistent. If you're a starter for an NBA, like, the removal of the fans is probably going to do something to you, but whatever. You've been playing all year round. Like, you're a guy in the rotation. You start, you play. Your level of play probably won't be affected a ton. Mm-hmm. But what I didn't really look into enough prior to this, and what I'm coming to the conclusion now, 6 through 12, this is a game changer for those guys off the bench, man. Mm-hmm. Especially when you get down to like 8, 7, 9, 10, 11. Like, when these guys are coming in now, you're getting like good minutes from like random dudes right now.
Right.
Gary Trent Jr.'s going off.
Yeah, well, Michael Porter Jr. too, right?
Michael Porter Jr.
He started for a short, depleted team, obviously, right now with the Nuggets, but he's another perfect example.
TJ Warren had 50 and he had another 30.
We're getting a lot of no names that are kind of coming to shine, right?
Guys that get minutes, but they never get to stick on the court long enough because they don't do enough good things, are now like super comfortable, I think. Mm-hmm. And this is only going to get better as we go on, I think. I
completely agree with you. And another interesting point is, we were wondering if home court advantage would be a thing. And before all the games yesterday, the home teams were 14-7 overall. So I don't know what if it is that pumping in the crowd noise or whatever it may be. I don't know what
too small of a sample size.
It is too small of a sample size, but it is an interesting point, right? And it could be matchups.
Of those 7 losses, 2 of them are the Wizards, so we don't care.
Right, most likely, right? So no, it is interesting with that. So the two things that have also been really interesting is, it's great to see that these players have actually come into shape. I think that's been an interesting thing, right?
Some in better shape than they were.
Yes. Prior to. And I think it's going to be an interesting to see over the course of this, these guys are playing a lot closer games, right? When we get to the playoffs, you usually have like a 2-game gap in the first round, but that's not going to be the case. So it's going to be interesting to see how the older players respond to this.
Yeah.
I think again, we've talked about how the younger players are really going to benefit from this format and this shortened season as well. But I think we're really going to find out how great shape they're actually in. And also sorry, it's complete random, but the reffing has been really inconsistent at this point too. So that's something I hope that the league can come around to and make a little more consistent, because some games I'm finding is a lot more tightened where the whistle is in their mouth constantly, and then there's some guys that just have the whistle in their pocket and they're just letting them play basketball.
How do you fix it?
I know that the refs are watching tape, and reviewing and sitting down with, the heads and trying to say, like, we got to be more consistent here. Our definition of flagrant foul.
OKC Nuggets ending where they went to OT.
Yes.
And CP3 got to the line on Millsap. You saw that call.
I did see that call.
And that was like...
It was questionable, right?
Questionable?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it was a complete non-call.
It was a complete non-call. But then, the Raptors and... Was it the Raptors and Heat yesterday, right?
Right.
The definition of flagrant foul, and it should have been swapped the other way. And I've seen it there as well, right? I think... we got to talk about this because Gabe brought this up. But Giannis kind of got...
Yes.
The superstar treatment against the Celtics the other night.
Definitely got the superstar treatment.
He easily should have been called for a charge, I believe, on Marcus Smart.
Yep.
But because he had 5 fouls, and the NBA knows we need Giannis to finish this game out, right? In order, for numbers, whatever. I mean, conspiracy theories, whatever you want to call it. But it was a clear indication of we want Giannis to the end of this thing.
The reffing has been strange, and I'm very confused on why. It's like it seems out of the ordinary strange to me. I don't remember it being this weird earlier this year. I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah. I mean, there's always been a problem. I mean, in the season, the talking heads like Bill and Colin, all those guys have said the refereeing has been poor, but it's just been really obvious now, and I don't know what the excuse is.
Maybe it takes them
right?
some time, right? Like maybe these guys have just been sitting on the couch for 5 months. Maybe they didn't think they were gonna have another season. Maybe they haven't been doing anything.
Right? Maybe they're miserable. They just want to get out of those games as well, right? So no, it's been a lot of. I mean, for the most part, it's been really fun, and I think the league is just kind of been on point. Like this is better than any expectations I could have had.
They're doing a good job, but man, I'm telling you, there's a lot of parity right now. I think in this bubble.
Yeah. So let's start because I think that's a great segue in terms of what we want to talk about with some of the other teams right now. Can we? You know what? I think it's only right if we start with the Raptors. Right?
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to leave them a tail end like all
That's
those
fair,
American
that's fair.
podcasts and broadcasts. I think we need to put them on the forefront. We need to emphasize our points.
These fucking tires for a couple weeks now.
Right. And I think
I don't know how much more.
we're sipping our tea right now because the receipts are there after these first 2 games, right? Yeah. No, well, 2-0. But they'll be 3-0 after tomorrow, I'm sure, against the Magic, right?
I guess it is 2-0.
Yeah. So Raptors. Okay, so I kind of just want to lay of land here. So Raptors,
Heat, Lakers, and
that's it. They played the Lakers first, and they played Miami yesterday. They got Orlando
Lakers
tomorrow.
first. They played Lakers Sunday night.
Saturday night. It was the Lakers' second game.
True.
Okay. James did his homework.
I've watched way too many games.
That's a good thing, right?
Very confused now. I gotta.
So with these games, the Raptors have the best record since January. 23-3. I mean, we've been preaching this. Lowry, Siakam, Van Fleet, Gasol, Ibaka have missed a combined 105 games this season. And I mean, against that Lakers team, I mean, they didn't miss a beat. And I think a huge part of this, and which no one is talking about, is those extra couple of weeks in Florida. I really, really think that benefited this team.
On top of already being such a friendly, genuine group anyways, like you could tell that they actually don't hate each other.
No.
Very clearly don't hate each other.
No.
I agree. Being there earlier, again, like that, you're looking at a team that is also the furthest along chemistry-wise.
Right.
Straight up, as a group of individuals, take away the sport, guys hanging out, that's a very, very, like, deep chemistry team.
And speaking of chemistry, their defense is just like astounding right now, almost smothering, And it's interesting, like the Lakers hadn't beat the Raptors since 2014, which I didn't know, but that was a stat that was being pumped right after the game. LeBron versus the Raptors. So,
Can I stop? I hate when we do this.
Okay.
We pump these stats like that. Why are you guys fucking so pumped that Kawhi and the Raptors beat a LeBron-less fucking Kyle Kuzma-led Lakers twice?
Right. No, it's true because
be a stat that we could.
Well, the Lakers have been not the
Not
Lakers
good.
of yesteryear
Not
for the
good.
last couple teams.
The
right?
next stat that came out is
but here we go. LeBron with the Lakers is 0-4 against these Raptors. All right. Also, when I say these Raptors, they also had Kawhi, right? But with the Cavs, LeBron has been, overall 15-18, 9-4 record, 12-2 in the playoffs. But this Raptors team was, especially OG Anunoby, these guys were able to contain LeBron to a minimum and kind of had to make the other players work. And I think a lot of what we've talked about in the past and what's going to be a weakness for this Lakers team is kind of that guard position, because we obviously saw Kyle Lowry able to take advantage of that, scoring 33 points, 14 rebounds, career high, 6 assists, 5 3-pointers made. And obviously during that game, I couldn't help but think of you because I know you've been on Kyle's case, but not in a bad way, but you just wanted to see better out of him.
Of course. And I think
I almost wore his jersey today that a good friend gave to me.
What we're seeing is like Kyle Lowry. How many years is Kyle Lowry in the league now?
I don't know. It's got to be. I'll check for you, but
it's got to be 9.
Oh, way more than 9. Oh no, it's like a dozen at this point, isn't it? But I'll look it up.
Yeah, I would say at least a dozen, right? So like the Kyle Lowry thing, and I was always a hater of Kyle Lowry, and I will openly, I still can.
Hater is like an understatement.
Yeah, for sure, because he always tried to be someone he wasn't.
Right.
And I think over the past year now, even from last season as well, him finding his role with Kawhi, and now as the clear leader of this team, and someone who can score like he has on 34. But what I loved was the next game Fred had 36. Is that Kyle doesn't have this like false sense of I have to now be the scoring guy. Mm-hmm. He seems to be he seems to be very in tune with when to put his foot forward with this team specifically, and he deserves an ample amount of credit for how he's handling the leadership part of this aspect.
Mm-hmm. So 14 years in the league, right?
14 years, right? So now let me. So
8 with the Raptors.
I'm cool with it. We can love Kyle Lowry. I'm fine. Okay, I'm fine. Out of 14 years, do you genuinely believe that Kyle Lowry's been an exceptional basketball player for more than half?
That is a great question.
No, it's an obvious answer. The answer is no. He's taken some time, okay?
Yeah.
He's taken some, and that's fine, man. It's
That's
not
fair.
like the reason I throw the hate is because we all think he's
So
a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Well, so 14 years in the league, right? He's got a ring under his belt, 6-time NBA All-Star, a 1-time All-NBA third team, right?
Right.
So you're right. Like I think you're right in saying that he's only been good for.
But I don't want to
less than half
knock
his
right, and I don't want to knock him on that. I'm just saying that we're giving him praise right now, and everyone's always like, "You never get any praise." Okay, but this is his peak right now. We're in Kyle Lowry's best basketball of his entire career right now, today, like this day.
And we have to give Kyle a lot of credit because he took a step back last year, and
Yes.
now he's finding it again and
Yes.
getting accustomed to the role that he was hoping that he'd envisioned himself when he joined this Raptors basketball team, right?
This is much like what Russell Westbrook's doing with Houston right now, and kind of looking at himself from a different lens. And Kyle did it last year, and that got him a ring. Kyle's doing it again this year, and I might get him another ring.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, you have to, when you're talking about the top 5 point guards in the league, I mean, you have to entertain the idea of Kyle being in there, right?
At this point now, today, I would say Kyle Lowry and Chris Paul have similar careers. Now, I say this because Kyle Lowry has a ring on top of it. The moment Chris Paul, if OKC won this year, it's not the same anymore because of Chris Paul's body of work and longevity. Being a perennial best point guard for 15 years, easily. Like, no doubt about it. That's what Kyle doesn't have on that level. And, man, it's such a weird, like, no, everyone hates Kyle. That's not true. Not true. He's just not been good for 14 years.
No, I completely agree with you.
He's been amazing for 18 months.
Right. Because I think that a lot of, in Twitter, wherever you want to see people like, oh, so now you want to talk about Kyle Lowry. Because now he's finally gotten out of the Eastern Conference Finals. Exactly.
Yes.
100%.
I do want to talk about him now.
Exactly. And again, this is not to take away anything away from him, but he's had his tuffle in Houston, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember the second team he played for. Started out with the Grizzlies. Obviously, couldn't find his forefront there. Houston obviously butted heads over there. I think it was Kevin McHale at the time, and then came to the Raptors. And it wasn't right away that it meshed for him because he was playing behind Jose Calderon, right? So it wasn't until he kind of got the keys to the car and was able to kind of showcase and kind of put his ego and sort of all that sort of stuff and kind of start making a relationship with DeMar DeRozan that he was able to flourish. So I think that's where the Chris Paul conversation is like. Chris Paul kind of had immediate success with New Orleans, right? Him, Tyson Chandler, and David West, right? Like they were that three-headed monster, right? They went toe-to-toe with that Spurs team, right? In the Western Conference Finals, who made multiple All-Star teams. Yeah. But then obviously got moved around a little bit and it didn't work out for him.
But more individually, Chris Paul was exponentially the best passer and leader in the NBA for that time period.
Right.
And there wasn't a debate.
It was him and Darren Williams on a night-to-night basis, week-to-week, like who is the better point guard in the league.
I'm giving Kyle Lowry this grouping. I'm saying he's in the same group as Chris Paul. I'm saying Chris Paul's incredible.
Yeah.
But I'm saying is that it took him this long because Chris Paul's been doing the damn thing.
Right.
But he hasn't done the extra thing.
No.
Kyle got to the extra point. But he hasn't, this body of work, and the All-Star nods, you can't measure these.
Right.
It's so dependent on who else was in the East.
Who was hurt?
What was the standings?
Right. Were you in the East?
Who was playing where?
Right.
Like, what was happening?
Yeah.
That's too much, not enough information from a stat. But no, to the point, Kyle Lowry played outstanding. Fred VanVleet played outstanding. I think that this is the best defensive team in the bubble. Mm-hmm. I know Milwaukee has the best rating, but the Raptors are second anyways.
Right.
I think as far as if you go across every other opponent and list out their best 5, the Raptors have 5 guys that can DM up.
Right. I mean, I almost stretch that out to like 6, 7, and 8, right? I think that's the Raptors are showing that.
But that's why I'm saying, like, concretely, no matter what lineup you want to put towards me, the Raps got 5 guys that are going to be able to go out there and play defense to it.
And I'm so glad that you brought up defense because, the Raptors, Duncan Robinson has been a problem and an early problem for, early on in this kind of return to the NBA, and he's just been lighting up teams. Raptors see that, and they held him to 4 shots, which for a three-point shooter, second best shooter in the league, if you're talking about percentages at the three-point line, Duncan Robinson is the guy, and it's like such a small part of that team because when you think of that team, you think of Bam, you think of Jimmy, but they kind of just let Jimmy do his thing and get the one-on-ones, right? Because we saw how great OG was against LeBron, right? We can only contain LeBron to so much, but he's like, we trust OG to do his job, and then we'll just shut down everyone else, right? And even if Bam was having problems. A great stat that I found is, Gasol is becoming a problem for opposing defenses, right? When he's on the floor, the Heat score 79.6 points per 100, and the Lakers only score 60.8. So anytime Gasol is on the floor, he's causing some sort of havoc. Now, the only problem is, and I don't know if you've noticed this, his usage offensively is still an issue, and I think the Raptors are still trying to sort that out.
Yeah. Listen, that's my favorite Raptor, man. Mm-hmm. I love Marc Gasol.
Right.
For what he brings defensively and offensively. But no, like, when you talk about the Raps, you have to point out the fact that at the start of this Golden State Warriors dynasty, in whatever year that was, 15 or 16, I guess, they shot threes. Defensively, teams couldn't fucking figure it out. Mm-hmm. They just couldn't. And dude, I haven't seen anything like that since then until right now with the Raptors, man. The Raptors defensively gives headaches, dude. Like, these people are worried about this. Mm-hmm. Like, coaches are not fucking down. No. It's just like, I don't want to really go against these guys. Like, this is a problem for me.
It's funny because there was an anonymous scout or somebody on an opposing team that says, the Raptors are a nightmare because they have like 20 different defensive sets. And then somebody went to Nick Nurse and said, how do you feel about this compliment? He's like, I'm a little offended because it's actually 30 to 40 different sets that we have.
Yeah. Well, my initial reaction was only 20? No way.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just they have so many different ways of defending it. I mean, you see that on the go when these Raptors are playing. Like, sometimes they'll play, their box and one, or they'll play zone, or they'll go man to man. Like, it's just they just have so many different knots to their defensive schemes, which is crazy, right?
I do want to put, like, not a bit of a knock on Nurse, but we got to give some love to Dwayne Casey, because I think a lot of this foundation is still coming out of that.
The guy that didn't give his vote to Nurse, and that's why Nurse came up short one vote when it comes to the AP or the defensive. If you don't know, co-coaches were given to Budenholzer and Donovan, and Nurse missed out by one vote. But I also want to preface, because a lot of people are like, crying wolf here. It's not the official NBA Coach of the Year award. It's voted on by the coaches and
the awards
peers,
don't matter anyways. But
no, absolutely. Yeah. It's just scary because that award is always an indication of who's going to win. But the media members will tell you that, like, Nurse is the the forefront winner for that, right?
Yeah.
I have to talk about Van Fleet in all this, right? Of course. And I've kind of got a different approach to it, because, like, Van Fleet goes for 36 points, 50% from the field, 7 for 12 for 3-point land, doesn't miss a free throw, goes 13 for 13. Craziest stat, okay? And I'm sure you don't know this. When Van Fleet starts for the Raptors, they're 60-18. 60-18, which is absurd. Now, what scares me about that stat is Van Fleet is going into this offseason as a free agent. So as a Raptors fan, is that concerning how well he's playing and how well he's probably going to play throughout these playoffs?
I'm a Fred Van Fleet fan, and the Raptors should secure him. Are we getting a little ahead of ourselves with this? He's getting the bag talk.
The fact that he's betting on himself, and you don't think he's finally going to get that?
I just mean, we have a handful of 30-point performances, right? But what are the numbers?
From those other players?
From him.
Well, I mean, this is the only one that he dropped. This was
because listen, when you want to get the bag as a shooting guard in the NBA, you got to go talk to James Harden. You got to go talk to Jimmy Butler. Like, we're talking about different dudes here,
right?
Okay, I'm just saying different dudes. There's a couple point guards that if you went to a right team, they'll pay out the ask if they don't got a point guard. A scoring shooting guard.
Yeah.
Scoring shooting guard. You're talking about the Brad Beals, the CJ McCollums, these guys.
Yeah.
Is Fred Van Fleet in that conversation with
But there is a team out there, like, say, the Knicks, that are going to go out of their way and give Fred what he wants, right? Like, you're completely right that, he's maybe not in that category.
Okay.
But then just to Van Fleet's credit, like, he's the one that got the one MVP vote that wasn't Kawhi Leonard in the NBA Finals, and he was a huge reason for their success against that Warriors team.
If you're dumb enough to pay for an overused car or overpay for a used car, why should I pay for it? Like, that doesn't mean that I have to do it.
Right. But we know that there's a team out there that's going to do it.
But why does that make us spend more money on a guy? Because this is the mentality that just fucks you down the road 2 years later.
So you're saying that the Raptors shouldn't be stupid to match it if it's absurd?
Yeah, no. Right. Dude, listen, evaluate the guy, give him his price. You've done this, obviously. You're a very intelligent organization. Messiah, he's not CJ McCollum, so you're not going to pay him what you would CJ McCollum, I hope. right?
I think they're in an interesting position because you have more than 7 players coming off the salary next year, and then even 2021, you're only locked into 4 guys, and all of them are minimal contracts, like Thomas, Hernandez, Siakam obviously got a big payday, Norman Powell, but then you have the biggies like Gasol coming off the books next year. You have who else do we have? I guess that's the biggest contract that comes off, right? Oh, Serge Ibaka as well, right? Because we're paying him a chunk. It's just, I think it's interesting because, you'll have Kyle coming off the books after next year. But then the Raptors are notorious for bringing up young guys and having a system that has, people come in and kind of enter the system and do really, really well, right?
If Fred's going to stay, he's probably going to have to take a pay cut, right? In his mind, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, listen, leave it up to the guy, man.
Yeah.
You're going to find other, I understand that, and you want to build them up in your program, and I get that, and if you can, that's great. But just because we've seen glimpses, and I'm saying the word glimpses very profoundly, I would be very, I don't think he doesn't average over 20 points a game. He doesn't average over 18 points a game on a regular basis throughout the year. Mm-hmm. I'm not giving this guy $30 million, man. And yes, you're right. Some team is going to do that, but just because they're idiots does not mean that we should be idiots too.
Well, and I don't expect someone like a Messiah to kind of follow those tropes, right? I think that he'll be very smart. You're
bringing up a good point because maybe they're just going to fall in love with the fact he's a Raptor. We want to keep him. He's won a title here. The
thing is, you could give him that 30 because, okay, so Kyle gets 33. Listen, I'm just saying hypothetically. Listen, you're giving Kyle 33 right now. You're giving Kyle 30 next year. Then he comes off the books. Does it hurt for you to give, Van Fleet all that money? Because I can't see Kyle coming. He comes back, but he obviously comes on a home team discount at that point, right?
Yeah.
Well,
what's Gasol's contract? He's coming off the books.
He's coming off the books with 25. Serge comes off with 23.
I still wouldn't pay Fred 25, but if you want to do that, do that. Oh my God, dude! You think he's worth 25 million? No, don't compare. I hate the comparison game.
But I think he's going to be one of the people that gets hurt by the salary cap next year. So I don't think it's going to... 30 million might look ridiculous next year because they won't even have that type of money to give him. Right? Like, you might just be, putting yourself in a deeper hole if you do.
I feel like kind of Dak Prescott-y. Like, you want how much, man? Hold up, bro. Just give me a couple more years.
Too bad we can just franchise tag him, right? Because he'd be such an obvious point for them.
But all in all, the Raptors are looking phenomenal.
Yes.
I'm
sorry, we went kind of grim there, right?
Yeah, we got weird. we got weird. But I would say that they're like the favorite to win the East right now today.
They have to say that, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think so. I think defensively, this is a conundrum.
Well, I think this is a great segue because the Bucks aren't looking as sharp as they did throughout the season, right? Yeah. Bucks are 2-5 in their last 7 games, and obviously that goes back to prior to the pandemic. And keep in mind, no Giannis at that time because he was hurt, but losses to 500 teams, right? You're talking about the Rockets, the Lakers, the Heat, the Nuggets, and not a 500 team in the Suns. Mm-hmm. Now, a bit of a caveat, obviously, in playing that Houston team. They had no Bledsoe or Connaughton as well, right? But I think we're really starting to find out that you need that third guy to be successful if you're going to make a deep run, right? And you look at the last couple of NBA champions, right? And I'm stealing this for Colin Cowherd.
I was just going to say,
right?
You're taking from Cowherd.
Right? But you got Klay Thompson, right, with the Warriors. You've got Kyle Lowry with the Raptors. You got Kevin Love with the Cavs, right?
To be as their third best D saying, as their third option for scoring. Kevin Love was the third behind Kyrie and LeBron. Klay was behind Steph and KD. Kyle Lowry behind Kawhi and
Pascal. Right. So, is Middleton and Bledsoe going to be enough for their team? And I mean, you've already said last week that you just don't see much from this team. Like, is this justifying your case? Or?
Yes, I think I hit this nail right in the head. Like, I think I'm exactly correct on this. I don't think they're going to be. It's going to be too clunky trying to get back and going to where they were. They're going to think that they can. They're going to try all these different things. They're going to push Giannis too much. He's going to.
Well, you say try different things, but Budenholzer is kind of notorious for sticking to what he likes. He's kind of one of those coaches that doesn't really. And I think that's why he's winning Coach of the Year because he's just doing the same. Well, I mean, maybe that's why he shouldn't win Coach of the Year, but he's a guy that sticks to his guns, and it works. The system.
But he usually plays with like 8 to 9 guys, and he's already shrunk his bench.
Right.
So he's already changing a little bit. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting.
Yeah.
But man, Middleton, he's officially a 50-40-90 season for him.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
That's it, man.
That's rare category.
Dude, that does not get enough love, dude. Mm-hmm. 50% from the field, 40% from the 3-point line, and 90 from the free throw for a season.
Right.
He's not at all a good enough second option, but that's a fucking outstanding.
He's got the numbers to back it up, but we still don't think he's a great second fiddle.
I think for him specifically, like that's your third scorer, like you're talking about.
Yes,
that's your third guy right there. That's him.
Right.
For sure.
He would be he's got the perfect mold for that third guy. I also think that it's interesting that it seems that Giannis still hasn't figured out being swarmed by. And what I mean that is, when they kind of clunk on him in the paint. I mean, we saw it in that last possession against the Rockets. He kind of went in the paint. Harden was able to get his hand in there, and then he just made it ill-advised. He got turned over the ball, and then he also made an ill-advised pass to the corner, right? And also the Bucks keep getting killed on corner threes. Like, that's one thing that I've noticed and have read consistently, that they're just a team that always gives up the corner threes. And against a team like the Rockets, for instance, that's going to kill you.
And they shoot 61 threes, yeah.
Yeah. It was so okay. Rockets are a great. I mean, I do want to shuffle through all these teams, but this Rockets team.
But to end on the Bucks, they're gonna crash for sure.
Yeah.
First 2 rounds of the playoffs, they're gonna plummet and blow up.
I don't know. It just depends matchup wise who they end up with.
Right.
Because
it's not the first. I mean, Orlando's not gonna beat them.
Right.
But Portland would, that's what I'm trying to say.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, the Houston team, they should have lost that game. 61 3-point attempts, right? They only made 21, and they still were able to win that game. Now, this Houston team, I don't know where you sit on them. I'm kind of like flip-flopping back and forth with them. But, Westbrook, 36 straight games with 20 plus points, the longest streak of his career. He's at 231 points in the bubble. This team, he's only averaging 3.8 pointers per game, right? And I think we've talked about if Russell can avoid taking 3-point shots, this team is going to be successful. And I think he's finally realized, right? That number is the lowest since his 12-13 season. And he's also killing the offensive boards, right? 5 against the Mavericks. So my question to you, given all that information, we talked about how their playing style is not sustainable, right? It's exhausting. And even if you watch that game against the Bucks, like they're tired on defense, right? But given this shortened format, do you think it's possible for them to make a deep run? Can they be the best team in the West? Or if they're in a 7-game series and they're in a track meet, like it's just going to catch up with them eventually?
They need the 3 seed bad, and they know it. Mm-hmm. I think that's been clear too.
Right.
That's not what they've been talking about a ton. James Harden and the Houston Rockets know they don't want to see LA. Mm-hmm. Because that's kind of the issue right now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think it's matchup wise. I think you're playing Moneyball. If you want to shoot 61 threes, that's your choice. But man, there's a real shot you win every game too. Mm-hmm. Like mathematics there's truth to it.
Right.
If you shoot 61 times and 40 fucking threes drop, like you're probably gonna win.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, are we gonna just like think that basketball can be thought of in that sense? I don't know if we're ready for that.
Right.
Where I think matchup wise, a lot of teams get hurt by this Houston weirdness, this uneasiness.
It throws them off. Right.
Man.
I think every team goes in it thinking, okay, we'll just play big. We'll just kill them in the post. But then you have to think, Houston says to themselves, okay, you're just doing what every other team wants to do to us, and it still is not working, right? Yes. Like, Houston is one of those rare teams that does really well against plus 500 teams, right?
Yes.
And I think Russello and Simmons were talking about who is the most likely to end up in the 3rd seed? Would it be OKC? Would it be Houston? Because they seem to be the teams that are kind of flourishing in this sort of bubble. And the difference between them is that OKC actually doesn't play well against 500 teams, whereas, Houston plays well against those teams that you want to beat that eventually become NBA champions.
Yeah, and man, Robert Covington has 2.5 blocks a game.
You literally took the stat right off my page. 2.5 blocks in 16 games.
And it's the only guy better is Hassan Whiteside.
Yeah, you got that shit memorized, eh? Look at you. so it's higher than Lopez, Davis, and Gobert, right?
But even a stat like that kind of made me look at it like, fuck, are they even, is it that different? Like he's basically become the Clint Capella for them, right? Like, are they just standing in different places? You know what I mean? Like, how different is this now?
Right.
They shoot a ton of threes, yes, but it's just one guy not in the key as opposed to where he was before. Defensively, how much more are they hurt? Is it just one less big man? Did they always just play with just Clint Capella on the court anyways? It's not like they did like Nene and Clint Capella. That stopped like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So how much different is it?
Right.
Because now I'm kind of looking at it almost like, do we even change a ton? Or did they just put Russell Westbrook to center? Right.
Because like I said, he's been crashing the offensive board a lot more than he has in the past.
They just put him at the center position but made him play on the outside and use athleticism to be the inside guy.
Right.
So then when you kind of like break it down in certain ways, you're like, okay, maybe that could work logistically. Like maybe that actually isn't that big of a deal.
I think they're definitely going to be a team to, I mean, we'll always go back and forth on them, but I think ultimately they're going to be a team that you want to avoid. And I think in a 7-game series.
But I also think though, if you're a very experienced team and a well-coached team, I would take the OKC in a 7-game series against them. I think Chris Paul will be able to handle it.
Right.
I think when it gets late in the games and stuff, you stay close and then you just better game manage than they do.
Right. So OKC is an interesting team, right?
It's a very interesting team.
We see them without Schroeder yesterday, and we see how much of a difference that makes, right?
Schroeder's
And
a very
maybe
good basketball
I mean, he made a great case for his 6-man candidacy, just based on the fact that he had to leave the bubble for the birth of his new son, I believe it's son, and so he'll obviously be missing a couple games. But an interesting stat, right, is they need 2 guards on the floor at all time. Like it's really obvious that without that 2-guard set, they're not as good as they normally are. Now, when they have all 3 of those guards on the floor, they outscore their teams 26.6 points per possession. Now, when they have just 2 on the floor, they get outscored by 0.3, and then if they only have 1 guard, they get outscored by 10. So their success is predicated on that 3-guard set. So if one of those guys go down, and again, we've been talking about older players and how they'll be able to get this, and we know Chris Paul is become victim to a hamstring injury during the postseason, right? It'll be interesting to see if they'll be able to keep fresh legs throughout the season. But again, this is a team that you should be very afraid of.
Yeah, and I like,
and they have the most fourth quarter comebacks in the league this entire season. I don't know if you knew that. They're basically the Seahawks of the NBA.
Yeah, they had the best per in the last 2 minutes, right, or whatever.
Correct.
OKC, man, I don't know. I like them as a little dark horse, to be honest.
I do too.
I think Chris Paul. I'm with you. The past would say you're correct. Chris Paul's going to get hurt. The past would say Chris Paul's going to get hurt. But he's made a ton of lifestyle changes outside of this thing.
Right. He's on that vegan lifestyle.
Man, I don't know. I think Steven Adams doesn't get enough credit for how good he is. I think Danilo Gallinari doesn't get enough credit for how good he is. And I think SGA is a perennial.
Oh my God. The more and more I see him, I'm like, this guy's going to lead a basketball team eventually.
This guy's going to be an NBA All-Star starter eventually.
I agree with you.
I think, man. Yeah. I think he is an incredible defender.
Yeah.
An amazing scorer, a shot creator, a playmaker, so quick.
Yeah.
As far as Canadians go, man, we gotta be
happy
there,
right?
about that.
Absolutely.
No,
we got to continue to pump his tires and put him on the forefront because he's the future of Canadian basketball.
That's one of the best future. No, that's one of the best young guys in NBA, in National Basketball Association.
Right. Yeah, we shouldn't even just talk about Canadian basketball. You're absolutely right. He's going to be,
man.
In a couple of years, I think when we're talking about top 5 guards,
Oh my God, dude,
he's definitely going to be in that conversation at some point.
If you haven't watched him intently yet, go watch him. It's incredible.
The level of confidence for a guy that age is insane. Especially when he's driving in the hole and stuff, and even in his own shot. And I think a lot of it has to do being able to play aside someone like a Chris Paul, right? Who we bashed earlier.
Yeah, but this allows now you kind of look at this makeup of this team, right? And it's okay, maybe I do get how this works, right? Dennis Schroeder and SGA kind of just feed off CP3 because CP3 is such a good leader and knows how to pull strings on guys.
Right.
So he's getting the best out of them. He's also at his physical best. And then he also has 2 big men that can score and rebound for him.
Right.
Chris Paul is really doing this Muppet thing,
Yeah.
And he's doing it damn well.
Absolutely.
If he stays healthy, man, they're dangerous.
Absolutely.
They're dangerous.
So speaking of Muppets, this is again, we're just killing the segues today. I really want to talk about this chase for 8, right? We did a pretty deep dive in where we thought it was going, but somebody that just refuses to die is the Spurs team, okay? Because when we were talking about the 3 teams that be fighting for this, the Spurs were not in our conversation, and now they're 2 games back. Again, Popovich, another guy that's just been able to alternate and kind of change his game plan, moving DeRozan now to the power forward position, which I never imagined. But now they're becoming a problem, and now they're 2-1 in this bubble. And they could have easily won that game against the Sixers. They missed a lot of clutch free throws down the stretch there. DeRozan hit a couple big shots, and then when it came down to one of the final shots, DeJounte Murray just decided to wave off DeRozan when they should have rode the hot hand of DeRozan. And then Milt Shake, or whatever the hell his name is, I still don't know his name, the point guard that they're experimenting with the Sixers.
Shake Milton.
Shake Milton. Okay, so I wasn't that far.
Milkshake. You called him Milkshake.
No, I didn't. I said Milt Shake, not Milt.
Okay. I was like, you were very
Shake
far
Milton.
off. That's not even close.
But he kind of bailed them out on kind of a huck three. Horford kind of panicked and gave him the ball, and so that easily could have been a 3-0 Spurs team. But this chase for 8 has just become so much more interesting, especially considering we thought the Pelicans were just gonna put Zion on sort of this minute restriction and say, you know what, we're just gonna take what we have and work with it. But obviously Zion really wants to play, and so they let him play throughout that Grizzlies game, and now we've seen how much of a difference maker Zion can be in a game. And
Zion looks fat.
Yeah, you know what's interesting?
Super fat.
Between Jokic, Gasol, and Zion,
all that weight went over to Zion. Jokic was like, "Here you go."
Jokic and Gasol look skinnier, but I really think the filters helped them in those photos because they actually don't look that much different. Like they don't look as much shredded. They're definitely thinner. Yeah. But I don't think they're as shredded as we were all expecting them to be.
Yeah, Gasol's definitely thinner. He looks more athletic in my opinion.
Right.
I would say Jokic looks more athletic too.
Yeah.
But Zion looks like he's fat.
Well, he did leave the bubble for a bit, so maybe it was some of that Louisiana kicking.
I thought we were all freaking out about that. Like, remember the one photo where he was all jacked?
Where his skull is like he was like shredded.
And then he came out here, and I was like, oh, that's not jacked.
Yeah, but yeah,
Dude, no. So this sucks. What I'm about to say, and you're not gonna like it. Shame on you, Zion, man. Absolute shame on you. You fucking didn't think to stay in better shape that whole time, and now you're in a fucking fight for the 8 seed, and you have to have a minute restriction on your ass.
But is that his fault?
And I don't give a fuck whose fault it is.
Okay.
If it's a real thing, they think it's real. You're stuck in wind. You can't get back on defense. So hey, who's wrong in this case? Should they keep you playing? I watched that fucking game. He was dogging it, dude. Dogging it.
And he still dominated.
Whatever. Yeah,
it's
you
still
can.
A problem.
Well, yeah, you can score on offense, sure, but if you want to fucking be a player on the goddamn team, get off the court. You want to complain about your minute restriction? Go do some fucking running.
I think David Griffin and that front office is just playing their cards right? Like they're like, you're on the outside looking in. It's not like we're fighting for, a home court advantage or anything. So we got to work with what we have.
Whatever the case is.
You still think he should
All I know is Zion had 4 months to make it so that when he showed up, he could have then said to David Griffin, look, I'm in the best shit in my life. You don't need to do shit. And he sure as hell didn't do that. He came in worse shape.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you that he...
And he's not getting hit for it right now. Everyone's always like, well, why are we letting Zion play? Well, because he walks up back on defense.
Well, he's got like this permanent limp. Have you noticed that? Because everyone's like concerned, oh my God, did he hurt himself? And I'm like, no, that's just the way he walks.
But yeah, listen, I'm not gonna get pissed at a minute restriction when I watch a guy like dry heavingly walk back on defense. Instantly I saw that, I was like, oh, we're all so stupid for being mad at this.
Right.
We're all so abysmally dumb.
Right.
He deserves this.
Absolutely. But yeah, it is interesting to see. The Pelicans have the easier schedule going down now with 6 games left. The Grizzlies unfortunately don't.
They didn't take it seriously enough from the get-go. Man.
No, well, and I think the immediate reaction after that first game was like, seriously, your Zion's not on in the last 2 minutes of the game. That a very winnable game at this point, and then the same thing happens the next game, right? Those games were
even without Zion, they should have won these basketball games. I think.
Well, their defense is a problem, man. It's a layup line for opposing teams at this point. So if there's something that they got to fix, like offensively, they're going to be great. Like Zoe's been just doing a great job running the offense.
BI can hit some shots.
Are we going to talk about the fact that BI should be the most improved player? Like, are you here? Can you finally admit that?
No, I don't admit that at all. I still think that's not an educated take, man. Last year, you saw him score 30, 40, 45, 36, 38. We've seen him do this all the time.
Okay, I tried. Because every time I see something about him, I just like a little part of me just gloats. So whatever.
I don't care about one instance. Like, you can't give me that. He closed that game out there tonight very,
but
very
him and Zion did a great job.
I thought he closed it out, not Zion. Zion scored a couple layups.
But
Zion hit 2 jimmers in the corner to shut him up.
That Brandon is the reason that they won that last game, right? But I think that we're just seeing when you kind of let Zion just be who he wants to be in free reign, like. He's too fast for big men, and then he just punishes smaller guys. Like, he's just a matchup nightmare, right? When he's able to play.
I get it. But fucking be better shape.
So, yeah, Grizzlies 0-3, right? Pelicans 2-1, and then I think our guiltiest pleasure, and there were obviously still hopes for us that this team will get in, but they have the toughest road, is the Blazers. Dame is an absolute reckon with. Like, he's just unbelievable. And then you have Nurkic, who's averaged 24 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. He's shooting 55% from the field, 3.6 blocks per game, and 2 steals. Like, his stat line is unbelievable. And then the two pleasant surprises have to be Gary Trent Jr., who you mentioned before, 41% from three-point land, and then Melo Light's just been clutch in these games near the end.
Zach Collins has done a great job too, getting him back as well.
With him, I just don't know who I'm getting. Sometimes he's a liability, but then sometimes you're just like, oh my god, like that's Zach Collins.
You have another big in the rotation, which is huge. Having Collins, Whiteside, and Nurkic, now you kind of have that solid rotation where you can have two of them on. Sometimes you can have one of them on. They have a great makeup of a team, and their schedule may be hard, sure, but I still like them coming out.
100%. I think they're a headache for all the teams that they've got to run in, and we've got a great game tonight with Houston and them, and I think that'll be high scoring. It's going to be up and down. Like, if you want to watch a fun basketball game, maybe not necessarily the best basketball, but a fun game, like that's definitely going to be a track meet tonight.
Game against the Celtics the other day, man. I don't know what that was.
They weren't even supposed to be in that game. 30-16, and he just like that. He was the reason that they came back.
He had an and 1 3 from half court.
Right.
What the fuck was that?
I'm sure that gave you a lot of anxiety watching that game.
I love Dame, so I was just like, damn, but like, what is going on with this? And he's different, man.
Right.
He's different.
Right. He's different is just the perfect way to categorize
He's got to get
him.
talked about more in this upper echelon of point guards.
So, in talking about the Celtics, right? Celtics are 13-0 when Brown scores 25 plus points, and you saw it in that game, right? Scores 30 points, 16 in the fourth quarter. He's a huge reason why they won, 6 for 8 from 3-point land. But it's great to see that we're gonna see Kemba take a step back, and it's gonna have to fall on the shoulders of Jaylen Brown.
It's interesting because I think Tatum, he had 34 that night as well, I believe.
Yeah, so shaved Tatum went 34 points and
leave it to you to make
22.
This point, eh? Guy gets a haircut and shoots better. Whatever.
I think I said it. Remember a couple podcasts ago, like, what was that haircut that he's got going on, right? It's just not the look for him, but obviously it was a heavy 34. Burden on his head, so he's able to.
No, man, Jaylen, it's such a the Celtics are very weird, like Jaylen Brown's almost the closer. Like almost the preferred closer,
right? In
a weird sense, but he also like is a guy that'll give it to Tatum when he thinks Tatum needs it.
Yeah,
like Jaylen Brown is way more valuable than anyone actually understands.
Yeah,
I think for Boston, and defensively, offensively, leadership wise, locker room wise, all of it.
And a low-key pleasant surprise, I think, for you as a Celtics fan is like Gordon Hayward is slowly coming into his own. And if we're going to talk about it, like you need a 3, I mean, Gordon Hayward's a perfect third option. I mean, he could easily be the top or the second. I mean, he did it for the Jazz, right? So
Gordon Hayward was a top 24 NBA basketball player for 5 years.
For 4
or 5 years.
When he played for the Jazz.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that wasn't really debatable.
Right.
No, you know what? I'll say it was debatable, but I'm saying he was there.
Well, there's a reason he got paid, right? Because he was like a multiple-time All-Star. He took those Jazz teams with, Gobert. Didn't obviously have Mitchell at the time, but
this
the
is like the opposite of Kyle Lowry conversation.
Yes.
Gordon Hayward's initial point of his career was phenomenal.
100%.
But now the past couple of years, he just hasn't been able to get it going. But I haven't given up on him yet. There's been too many injuries to give up on him, which is, it's kind of like Paul George, When Paul George had the leg thing, then he had like another thing, and it was like, we got to give him a second.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It should be, it's funny because like we started on such a high because we have 8 games, but now we're down to 6 games. And I think we're going to kind of see the quality of basketball maybe not be as great because a team like the Mavericks who screwed me over the last game, they're pretty much locked. And when I say screw me over, gambling, obviously, but they're pretty much locked in the 7. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what teams start to take the foot off the pedal, right? Mm-hmm. Like Milwaukee is on the list for a lot of these teams like the Grizzlies or whatever for like strength of schedule. But I mean, at some point, we're probably going to see a minute restriction on the likes of Giannis and stuff like that too, right? And we're going to see teams not be as aggressive. But I also if you're an NBA coach, like
that's what I mean.
How much do you want to take? Like we always talk about how that first round bye hurts an NFL football team because it takes like a quarter to get in the game. Like, do you really want to take the foot off the pedal?
This may be stupid, but considering the circumstances, I would play my starters the first 3 quarters every time. All 8 games remaining, no matter what. Yeah, because it was so frustrating for me to watch that Mavs Suns game. And shout out to the Suns, like they're 2-0 surprisingly, right? That was a fun game to watch.
That was a lot of fun game. But then I was just like near the end, obviously I had some investment in it, but it's so frustrating to me because Luka could get any layup he wanted at that point, and he could get to the free throw line at will. He had as many free throws as the Suns team that game. Yeah. But then they opted out on last two positions for a 3-pointer because they just wanted to win, or they didn't really care if they won and lost, right? So it was just that's where it got frustrating for me.
How do you feel with the Mavs?
They're gonna be it's my favorite word to use right now, but they're gonna be a problem. I think they're gonna be really, really good.
Did you know that they were the highest efficiency scoring team in the NBA? Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
It's a really fucking weird thing to hear, right?
Huh.
So the NBA posted an efficiency table, where it's like defense, offense, and it shows, and the Mavs are the highest on the offense.
Was it that chart?
Yes.
Yes, I saw that they were highest. And
but then I also read an article talking
defensively, they struggle though.
Oh my god, like the worst defensively.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they already had that. I'm like, because I watched that Suns game and I was thinking like, man, a couple long wings on this roster, like that would change it,
That's what they're a couple of just like spot up shooters where
OG Anunoby's away.
I don't know what's funnier, the fact that you suggested it or the way you pronounce that. But Luka and KP is combined for 70 points that game, so I mean it's no surprise.
But Luka hasn't had a jumper.
No.
So,
but I love seeing him drive. It's so weird because when you look at him and his body type, you're like, how is he bulldozing? But he's just so crafty in the way he drives, right?
What he wants every time.
It's so like slow and methodical. Like it's such a weird game, but it's so beautiful. He's one of my favorite players though. He's like on League Pass alert for me all the time.
You know who actually is now for me, and we can get to this as a decent segue. Actually, this will be their matchup first round is Paul George on the Clippers.
Okay.
Yo, there isn't a smoother dribbler today than Paul George right now.
Right.
This guy, when he gets in a little ISO and a one-on-one, this ball's on a string, man.
Right, and it's the pace that he does. Like sometimes it's a quick,
so
but sometimes he can just do it really slow.
It looks so good.
I think again, I'm trying to find it. I gotta reach my source here, but like I think he. Last week we were talking about the top 10 players in the bubble, and I had my questions about Paul George, and I immediately regretted it after watching those first two games because I think a healthy Paul George is going to be really, really good for that. That's why so good. None of us are hitting the panic button against that Lakers game, obviously, right? Because they're missing Montrez, right? They're missing Lou Williams, and Pat Bev was coming off the bench that game, right? And Pat Bev kind of filled the role of Lou Williams and hit a couple clutch threes that I was really surprised. But I mean, I don't think any of us came out of the game. I think a lot of us came out of the game saying, this is not good for the Lakers that it was such a close game and they were only barely able to beat this Clippers team that is not at full arsenal, right?
I would definitely agree.
Yeah. So,
but man, Paul George is like, he's up. He's legit. He was an MVP candidate last year,
right?
And we do forget about that a lot.
Absolutely. No, I told you I'm sticking to my Clippers Raptors, and I still think the Clippers are going to end up coming out of this thing if they're fully healthy and they're just able to find. They're just the interesting thing about them, and I you sometimes see the clips on the bench, like you saw Morris kind of putting the peace sign over Kawhi's head and stuff like that. It's just like, I wonder if he had more fun with the Raptors in terms of personalities and just kind of that community as opposed to his Clippers team. Because I think when shit is bad for the Clippers, like they're all pointing fingers and they're not talking and stuff like that. And maybe he likes that environment, but it's like the Raptors, they're still having fun even when they're losing, right?
When has a Doc Rivers coach team ever had a good chemistry? Through and through across the board.
Like off the court?
Or on the court.
I mean, the Celtics with the big three.
But there was always headbutting. No?
I think their only problem was always Rondo, right? Like Rondo was the only guy that just kind of was always an issue or a head case.
I always thought there was more internal issues with Doc Rivers, but I don't know.
But I mean, you're completely right with the Clippers, right? Obviously, it's notorious that Blake and CP were never able to get on the same page.
I thought KG and Paul used to get after it, but maybe
I think it was more of a competitive thing. I think that's just who KG is, right? Like I think it's all out of love at the end of the day, right? It's just really, and if you sucked, you sucked, right?
So you got Clippers Lakers in the Western Conference?
Oh my god, this is such a tough question. I really think the guards got exposed for the Lakers.
Let's get to the Lakers because I got a point with the Lakers.
My point with the Lakers is AD has to be the best player in all the series, all the games that they play in. Because we even saw last night with the Jazz with that 4-point play. Like, no one can guard AD. AD is just kind of in a stratosphere in his own. And
this is music to my ears. I've been saying this.
Right? I know. No, absolutely.
I've been saying this.
But I think it's becoming more and more obvious now, right? And this is not a knock on LeBron at all. I just think that teams will really clamor, I think teams are, and it's not an easy thing to say. Like, I think teams will be like, okay, we'll do our best with him one-on-one, but AD has to be the guy that we have to stop at the end of the day. In
my opinion, out of all the Lakers issues, whatever you want to say with the Lakers, the only way to beat them is AD. AD is the only guy. That's the guy that'll beat you, and that's the guy that you can beat.
Right.
That's it. So if you're beating, that's the way I see it right now. I don't care about the guards. I've changed my opinion about the experience, all that shit. Couldn't care less about anybody else. If Anthony Davis outperforms you over 7 games, then the Lakers will win that series. And if he doesn't, then they ain't gonna.
Yeah.
And just like you said, I don't even want to talk about LeBron. I understand who LeBron is. I know who he is. Man, I'm kind of maybe in my own world here than everybody else on the opinion of basketball. I think Anthony Davis is a better basketball player than LeBron this year.
Yeah, no,
I think Anthony Davis is the reason the Lakers are the 1 seed. I think Anthony Davis will be the reason they win the NBA Finals if they were to do so, and I don't think they will.
Well, I think, didn't he not tie Kobe's record of the most consecutive, whatever it was, 25, 30-point games? Like,
yeah. But I mean, just when you watch these guys, you talk about, like, remember, well, LeBron's off the court in Cleveland, so we got to find a way to keep scoring. They went fucking 4 out and ran AD at the 5 for like 10 minutes and a quarter. And he torched everyone.
Yeah.
He torched everybody. He hit fucking threes. He dunked. He passed the ball. He dribbled it. He worked the screens. It was like Caldwell Pope, and it didn't matter. It could have been you and me out there. It didn't make a difference. Like he was outstandingly the better player by leaps and bounds over everybody else, and it was so obvious. But defensively too, man.
Right. But you just like, even you just mentioning Caldwell Pope, like, if that's who we're gonna have to rely on, right? The likes of Caldwell Pope, Caruso, J.R. Smith has just not looked good in these games, and if Dion Waiters is gonna be your guy too, like, that's scary because his shot selection is very questionable as well, right? And that's where I'm concerned about, is just their reserves.
And I get that's your concern, but man,
AD's good enough to carry.
AD scores 42 and 50 and 15, and what?
Right.
All of that goes away. It's all gone because LeBron can fulfill the rest.
Right.
When LeBron doesn't need to score 52 and 10 like he did in Cleveland, man, he's hanging out. Because AD's going to score 50. AD can average 50 in a series if he wants.
Right.
And I say that with confidence.
And the proof is like the Raptors were able to hold Anthony Davis to, somewhat of a minimal game, right?
And look, they lost.
Like, he only had 14 points that game, 6 rebounds, and he shot 29%, right? So
and the Lakers lost.
And the Lakers lost.
Do you want to beat the Lakers? Hold 80 under 20. There you go.
And the Raptors are perfectly suited with that, with all their length,
Marc
right?
Gasol, Serge Ibaka, of course.
Yes. I love that we just came full circle there with the Raptors.
This is why Houston, they get torched. Mm-hmm. AD gonna average 55 on you guys for 7 nights. Yeah. We can even go to 7 games if you want, but he's gonna score 55.
Absolutely. No, I think their success begins and it ends with Anthony Davis and.
But now I don't think the Lakers can win the NBA Finals, but. If the Lakers get to the Western Conference Finals against the Clippers,
you still like them?
I've changed my mind now, man. I think the Lakers are going to win that game.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And not because of the guards, because no one's stopping Anthony Davis. Ain't nobody going to do it.
Yeah, they don't have the size.
They don't got him.
You're right.
The only guy, the guys that can do it are in the East. Mm-hmm. So that's it. I mean, you can say Rudy Gobert can, but I watched Rudy Gobert D-up Anthony Davis, and Anthony Davis scored 42.
Yes.
So, no.
And you're taling about a 2-time reigning defensive player of the year, right?
Overrated.
Ooh.
Big time, dude.
I guess you can see the snarl on James' face. That was so much. I felt the passion in that one.
This guy doesn't do enough. He gets too much praise.
Yeah, I agree with you that if, we get to October and it's Lakers, Bucks, Lakers, Celtics, Lakers, Raptors, I mean, I won't be surprised. But if, you're asking me right now, I think there's a lot of holes that can be exposed with this Lakers team. And it's concerning to me, right?
For sure.
Because, like, if Kyle Kuzma is going to be your third fiddle, right? Like, Kyle Kuzma's looked great in these first 2 games, but, I mean, is he like Mo Pete? Like, do you know when you're going to get it? Is it going to be enough for over the course of a 7-game series? It should be interesting, and I'm sure we're going to find out a lot more in the next couple of games that we have left.
100%.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think that's a good way to end this podcast. It's also Leaf time right now, so I was scoreboard watching, and the last time I checked,
were they up?
The Bucks were losing. And what's our final score here?
Jamal Crawford got hurt, eh? That sucks.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, Bucks win by 3. Wow, I'd love to catch the highlights of that game.
The Bucks beat a Jamal Crawford-less Nets by 3 points. Wow.
I bet, yeah. I can't wait to jump on Twitter. I'm sure the red flags are going off for this Bucks team right now. But we could also find Bledsoe and Connaughton both came back today, so I don't know what their excuse will be. Wow. Anyways, obviously we're super eager to go back and watch some sports. This has been another good episode. I didn't chew gum for you guys this week, so I apologize. That last episode, I sound like a fucking cow.
Podcasting or what?
Gabe definitely called me out on my shit, so
Yeah.
I appreciate
He
that.
did it so funny.
The professionalism, gentlemen, is what he said. Okay, yeah, I really wanted to throw you under the bus for that one and say it was you, but I couldn't. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Obviously, a lot of games to come up, and who knows, by next week, the Leafs might not be in the playoffs, and that'll be a whole discussion on here as well. Thanks for tuning in. As always, SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, all the good stuff. Enjoy your week of sports, and reminder, it is not a long weekend this coming weekend, so enjoy your Saturday and Sunday. See you later. Thanks, James.
Thank you.